Every year since 1973, Americans have come together to recognize and thank the men and women who provide the food and fiber that sustain us all. Welcome to Ag Day 2022, American Agriculture, Growing a Climate for Tomorrow. Please welcome Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack.
We have so much to celebrate on National Agriculture Day as we pay tribute to those who steward the land and grow, harvest, process, and distribute food, fuel, and fiber essential to the nation and the world. The future of the agricultural sector is bright, strong, and positive, and despite any challenge that comes our way, the Biden-Harris administration is focused on building the agricultural sector back better than before. Agricultural exports shattered records in 2021, and forecasts predict another record year this year. And we're seizing new opportunities to create more and new and better markets, strengthening supply chains, giving farmers and ranchers a fair shake, and supporting economic systems where the wealth created in rural areas stays in the rural areas. Notably, USDA is deploying $1 billion to enhance meat and poultry processing capacity and increase competition to bring power and choice back to the producer. From a reinvigorated focus on organic agriculture to urban agriculture to nutrition security, USDA is putting a special emphasis on building local and regional networks that will offer consumers affordable, healthy food produced closer to home. USDA is also focused on addressing longstanding inequities across our programs and services and has charged the Equity Commission with providing a set of forward-thinking recommendations that will result in lasting change. And finally, we're furthering our investments in supporting American agriculture to be a meaningful part of the solution to the problem of climate change. USDA has embarked on a department-wide effort to enact climate-smart agricultural policies that are voluntary, flexible, and led by producers that will increase the productivity and profitability of our producers and that will enhance their resiliency and sustainability efforts. American agriculture has long provided invaluable contributions to our country and to the world. On National Ag Day, let's take a moment to say thanks while continuing our work to help strengthen the agricultural sector, which is bright, strong, and positive.
Hello, I'm Amy Bradford with the Agriculture Relations Council, and our primary goal is to increase awareness among the world's consumers about the importance of agriculture to their lives and to society. I am really happy to welcome you to this program in honor of National Ag Day. I hope that you'll stick around for all of the programming today that we have. You'll hear from the National Outstanding Young Farmer. You'll hear what students are doing as they get ready to lobby their congressmen and elected officials on issues important to them. You'll hear from the American Farm Bureau about their grassroots efforts. And then you'll hear about the Ag Day Essay Contest and hear from the winner.
Hi, this is Max Armstrong with Farm Progress, saluting American agriculture on Agriculture Day. American agriculture is the heart of our country, the fabric and fuel of a prosperous nation and better world. American ag produced by American farmers, growing a climate for tomorrow. At Farm Progress, we join the Agriculture Council of America in celebrating National Ag Day. Thanks to American ag, growing a climate for tomorrow.
Well, we have a fairly large grain operation. We use that manure, that fertilizer, to raise crops. Then we take those crops that we raise and feed them here locally to our livestock. And then when that livestock gets ready for market, we take that manure product, that fertilizer, and put it back on the ground to raise some more. The local residents up here told me after we bought it that they all thought it was ruined. It had been degraded so much and eroded so much that nobody was really interested in buying it. We brought it back to life to where now we figure a normal corn crop would be maybe 180 bushel an acre for this area. and maybe 60 bushel beans. And we're very proud of the fact of the way we raise our crops too, that we feel we do that in a very sustainable operation. We believe real strongly in 100% real commitment to people, to pigs, and to the planet.
One of the most vital organizations in agriculture is the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. They've gathered a panel of state representatives to share the on-farm sustainability story. Please welcome them to the Ag Day stage.
Well, hello to all of our listeners and our guests here as we prepare and do this segment for Ag Day. We're thrilled at the National Association of State Departments of Ag, or NASDA as we call it, to be able to contribute to this piece on Ag Day TV and all that goes with that. I'm lucky to have here several of our members of the board of directors of NASDA. Let me introduce them quickly. I'll start with myself. I'm Ted McKinney. I'm very fortunate to serve as the CEO of NASDA. Formerly in the role as a director of the Department of Ag. To my immediate left is the president of this year's NASDA board. Richard Ball is the commissioner and has been for several years in New York, Richard, so thank you for joining us. To Richard's left is longtime friend Bruce Cutler from the state of Indiana, where he is the director of the Indiana State Department of Ag. To Bruce's left is Doug Miyamoto, our vice president. Doug is the director of the Department of Ag in Wyoming. And clearly, as you can tell, we've selected different states that come from different parts of the U.S. And on our far left, Wes Ward is the Secretary of Agriculture from the fine state of Arkansas. And again, a little bit different than the others. And so that's the beauty and the diversity of the four that we have here, is they're all going to bring some of the examples that they've seen firsthand with their farmers, their ranchers, some cases some food processing, as we do right by the environment. Commissioner Ball, let me start with you, and you can just describe what in the world does a State Department of Agriculture do?
Well, thanks so much, Ted. Appreciate it. And it's great to be with you all on this important topic. For me, the department is called the Department of Agriculture and Markets. That means that we have a couple of different missions. We certainly protect food safety, we protect animal welfare, we look at plant health, animal health, ag development, food safety, but we also deal very much with the markets. We deal with our farmers directly. We're not just the regulator for our agriculture, but we're also the voice for our agriculture in our capital. And it's really great to be able to do that for me as a farmer, someone who made a living since he was 18 years old in agriculture, to now be able to work with the other commissioners, secretaries, and directors from around the country on issues that matter to agriculture. So it's a great honor to be able to do that.
Clearly the last 5 years, accentuated in the last couple, the world's been upended with things like COVID, and with that comes a hue and cry for lots of change in the area of climate change, attention to our environment, a good thing I might add. And in talking with each of you, it strikes me that many of the programs that are being surfaced as new have been around for some time. And so whether it's a new project that you have in your state or an old one that is getting renewed, maybe plussed up, I'd like for you to dive into that so that people understand that the original environmentalists, our farmers and ranchers, people like you, Richard, are just that.
It's very much a subject that's in the front of all of our farmers' minds. But you know, in New York, people think of New York generally as New York City, but we actually rank in the top 10, 30 different commodities in the country. So we figure in every conversation that we have here at NASDA. You know, for us, decades ago, we embarked on moves towards sustainability and environmental stewardship. So we have a lot of things like ag non-point funding, climate resilient funding. You know, I can remember a few years ago having the worst drought that we'd ever seen in the state. And the following year, we had the wettest year on record. And so how do we help farmers mitigate that? Well, it turns out that a lot of our efforts, which decades ago began for environmental stewardship reasons, water quality, air quality, et cetera. Now as we transfer into thinking differently about climate, which has happened in the last several years when we've seen extremes in weather, we're finding their co-benefits. So they're going to help us with carbon sequestration, for example. New York has one of the toughest climate action programs in the country. And as a result of that, it implemented a Climate Action Council and work panels. We have an Ag and Forestry work panel. I chair that. There's 18 members on it, from the environmental side, from the farm side, from the research side, and we have achieved consensus on how agriculture can be a part of the solution as we look at climate challenges.
What we find, and in Indiana, our Indiana Conservation Partnership is a great example. There's about 8 different organizations that are part of this, and it was formalized. It is actually a formal partnership. It includes our Division of Soil Conservation, a couple of USDA agencies, including the Natural Resources Conservation Service, our Department of Environmental Management, Department of Natural Resources, the Indiana Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. All that's to say, from the federal to the local level, we have a formalized partnership that says we're going to work together on conservation. And of course, that has led to things like soil and water quality, but now it's bleeding more into even soil health. And how can we work together to make sure soil health is an important part of this climate discussion like we talked about?
And is it working?
It works wonderfully well. It's working great because you're getting buy-in, again, from the federal level clear to the local level, and then it even allows us to go out and look for grants and other programs from things like non-governmental organizations. The Nature Conservancy in Indiana is a great partner in a number of programs, and it allows us to be able to go to those folks, share what we're doing, and when they know what the cooperation is and that coordination, and sometimes it really opens their eyes that we're not working totally in silos on this and that it does work.
I'm going to move on down to Director Miyamoto from Wyoming, clearly a state out west. And Doug, you have a fascinating example where there are invasive species of plants, and you've had a program for some time, and other things, and you've had a program where you're bringing invasive plants and animal trails and a little bit of urban and rural together. Would you tell us about this? Because I think it illustrates the diversity and the complexity of what we deal with in the environment, climate change, and the like.
I'd be happy to, Ted. Yeah, Wyoming's different than most of the other states. It's high, it's dry, it's cold, and there's not very many of us that live there. That creates some challenges, but it also creates some opportunities. And I think this example that I have is one of landscape scale type conservation that's in an area of Wyoming, kind of in the north central part of the state, that really is globally significant in terms of its oil and gas reserves. And so there's a lot of pressure for industrial development, but it also happens to be the confluence of critical habitat for sage grouse, winter range for mule deer, for elk. It provides one of the world's longest migration corridors for pronghorn antelope in that area. There's a tremendous amount of predatory species in this area. There's gray wolves that exist there. There's grizzly bears that exist there. And the whole area is encompassed by ranches. And so when we rely on stewardship, or we're trying to foster stewardship for sustainability and climate change, we have to rely on our ranchers that are in that area, because they're the ones that were there first. They're still there now, and they'll be the last ones that are there, even after all of the industrial development is gone. So the role that we play at the Department of Ag within this infield of oil and gas development is we have coordinated a landscape scale project to combat annual invasive grasses. This is mostly cheatgrass. And cheatgrass is particularly difficult because it changes the fire return regime. So it's an annual grass that comes up earlier than the other native species in that area, and it dries out faster. So when it starts getting hot and dry in the Rocky Mountain West, and most of the states in the Rocky Mountain West do have issues with cheatgrass, and it's an indicator species for how well you can address climate change and how sustainable that landscape will be. So That's one of the main projects that we've been working on for some time, and I think it's been very successful. We've had some new technological advancements and a lot of new partnerships that have formed in recent years to try to make sure that we can keep those migration corridors open for wildlife. We have to be able to continue to ranch that area, and we've got to address the annual invasive plant species so that we can be more resilient for drought and for wildfire that are ever increasing out west where I live.
We're seeing a lot of new funding, perhaps a good thing, that's going to all kinds of projects. Do you see trying to plus up a very good program and make it better? Do you see some new programs that may not have been able to be funded in the past? Talk about the diversity of the funding, and particularly on that one successful project that you've had.
Yeah, absolutely, Ted. I mean, you know, at least in my situation, the scale of Wyoming and its landscape lends itself to you having to be able to pare down your ask all the time. So you'd love to be able to address invasive species. Most states would. It's a common theme. There's never enough money for invasive species. You can never get to them all. Mm-hmm. It would be the same type of extrapolation problem when it comes to migration corridors. These are thousands of miles long, and you're trying to ensure that there's connectivity between habitats. Just huge landscapes out in the Rocky Mountain West. And so when we do see these new opportunities that come around for targeted funding for specific purposes, invasive species being one of them, when it's broad like climate change, that could mean a lot of things. But for us, you know, invasive species has a direct tie to climate change. And I think it provides us a fantastic opportunity to go in places and at scales that we've never been able to contemplate before, but are absolutely necessary. If we want to make meaningful change, these are going to have to be large projects. And I always tell all the folks at the Wyoming Department of Agriculture, we have two primary jobs. And the first one is to make sure that farmers keep farming and ranchers keep ranching. And the second one is we always have to advocate for solid environmental stewardship, and we all know what that is already. We know it when we see it, and we just need to implement it to the highest degree that we can, and that's what most of our aim is.
Well, Wes, we're not going to forget you. We're not going to forget Arkansas. We know that there's a lot of poultry among many other things in Arkansas, but you have shared with us in the past a very interesting project that gets at water conservation, sort of the groundwater to surface water continuity. Talk about what you're doing, because water quality and water quantity are big deals that are getting bigger. Speak to that, would you?
Yeah, absolutely, and I do appreciate the diversity among the states, and it's always just a great opportunity to learn from each other on how we're addressing issues, and while they may not be exactly the same, we all learn from each other, and we take those lessons back home and try to adopt them and adjust them to address our needs. And you know, for Arkansas, you know, about 80% of our water use is in agriculture, and so we've got the large row crop industry, we've got forestry, we've got poultry production, but we've got row crops, and Arkansas produces about 50% of the nation's production of rice, and rice is a water-intensive crop, and so we have looked at individual farmers and broader on the full state level as well have looked at how are we addressing the water use, and does that have a long-term impact on agricultural production, but also municipal water use. You know, we're pulling water from the ground, pulling water from the aquifers that goes into agricultural production, but then also could have an impact on municipal water use as well. And so individual farmers, and even broader to our partners, Farm Bureau, Ag Council, Rice Federation, others who have been involved in that debate. And we have seen over the last several years a dedicated effort to switch from groundwater to surface water. And some of those are large scale, very big projects, and some of those are individual on-farm tailwater recovery systems, water impoundment, where producers, individual producers are conserving that water, conserving it for future use, not just for themselves and their families, but for their neighbors and the community and the state as a whole. So it's exciting to see the industry recognize that, see that themselves, and say we can do this on our own. We can do it voluntarily. We don't need someone to mandate this. We can come in. We can figure out this issue and make it better for future generations.
You know, you remind me of the amount of rice produced down there, and with that, some of the outdoor recreation, duck hunting, for example, goose hunting, for example. Speak to that as well, because your state has done a marvelous job at partnering with many groups, many of the wildlife, outdoor, Ducks Unlimited might be one example among others. Speak to that, because many people just think, oh, rice, lots of water, is that a waste? No, it's way more complex than that. Would you speak to that just a bit?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. It points to the partnerships. So you've got the agricultural organizations, you've got the environmental, you've got the wildlife organizations that are all working together on these issues. So it didn't one against the other. It's a collaborative approach, but you've got agricultural production, incredibly important, the Mississippi Flyway, and then duck hunting. We say that we're the duck hunting capital of the world in Stuttgart, Arkansas, but other parts of Arkansas, just phenomenal wildlife, and it all works together, where you're conserving habitat, you're conserving species, you're looking towards the sustainability of the production of agriculture for the future, and it all ties together. It's very exciting.
Talk about a story involving a farmer where doing right by soil health, water quality, climate has really been of great benefit to what we now call climate change and addressing that.
I will talk about close friends of mine who were involved in the Climate Action Council work in New York, dairy farm. Pretty successful farm. John Noble and his son Chris and their family, a very sustainable oriented dairy farm, methane digester, and they're taking not just their manure from their facility, but they're also taking one of the largest retailers in our state, grocery stores in our state. All of their green waste, instead of going to a landfill, is going to their farm, being processed and turned into energy. And I think that's a win-win. They're an important part of our Ag and Forestry work panel. And when I think about the lift, and when you look at climate action, when you look at the lift on the transportation industry, and the lift on the energy production industry, and the lift on housing and fuel, and you look at waste, and when you look at agriculture, we're the answer. We have answers. We have the ability to not just reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but actually to sequester carbon. We can be part of the answer here.
A great program that we have in Indiana is called In-Field Advantage. It's a program that we're working with in conjunction with Indiana corn and soybean organizations. We're bringing together farmers into this program to help share what they learn. So we've got protocols for research. Think, 20, 40 acres preferably, sometimes a little bit bigger. And then during the winter months, we'll bring them together. So we're doing things like drone flights and looking at that. We're doing testing and soil testing, in some cases maybe even nutrient testing. But then we bring them together in the wintertime, let them share. And these are small groups, typically 8 to 10 farmers. Let them share what they learned. Let them share what worked on their farm. Probably more importantly, didn't work, and how they're going to adjust what they're working with. And I think it kind of pulls them together in that soil health, the soil conservation, and certainly water quality space together.
Similar thread to my cohorts in that, the specific ranch that I'm thinking of has undertaken a lot of conservation, have done so at a very local level, and have done so obviously voluntarily, but it fits into a larger ecosystem for them. And so they have done many projects to foster migration corridors for wildlife, wildlife-friendly fencing projects. None of those fences were really crossable by a lot of wildlife species when we started. They've also gone to great lengths to address a lot of invasive species on their property. And one of the major key focuses for us out in the arid West when it comes to climate change and sustainability practices for Western ranches is addressing water for livestock operations in particular, but wildlife also benefit from those water developments. And so if we can strategically develop water so that we can rotate livestock around the ranch in a more even and a more efficient manner, that can lead to much higher quality habitat for the wildlife that visit those ranches. And it also can make sure that we're hardened a little bit against drought. And if we happen to have a natural disaster like wildfire, having those resources spread out across that entire operation make it a lot more adaptable.
We talk about forestry, and forestry is a long-term crop. It's not an annual, I'll plant it and then I'll harvest it later this year. And so we've seen a large increase in forest owners, forest landowners that are looking at forest action plans and forest management plans, where they're looking to the future, the next generation, saying, how do I manage, how do I conserve this piece of land for its most beneficial use, whether that's wildlife, that's fire prevention, that's all of those factors, and they're looking to the next generation of how to do that. So several increases on both, on water conservation, on forest management, a lot of great stories there.
Well, thank you. And I just want to thank all of you for joining us and taking a listen, spin around 4 states of the U.S. and what's been going on and what has the opportunity, I think, to be plussed up with some of the things that we're reading about, hearing about, funding perhaps coming, and let you have a window inside the world of a State Department of Agriculture. So happy Ag Day. Let's celebrate that appropriately, and thank you to the guests for sharing your personal stories from each of your states.
Ag Day is made possible through the generosity of our sponsors. These industry leaders are dedicated to sharing all the ways ag makes our way of life possible. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Greg Horstmeyer, Editor-in-Chief at DTN and Board Member of the Agriculture Council of America. DTN and the Progressive Farmer magazine are always proud to be part of National Ag Day. But this year has special significance as we look forward to once again gathering in person in Washington, D.C. and around the country to celebrate all that our farmers and ranchers bring to the U.S. and to the world. We know that in addition to activities in D.C., there will be events around the nation, and we thank all who support and participate in everything that Ag Day has to offer, including the virtual Ag Day presentations that will be streaming as part of this content. A special congratulations to our scholarship winners and to all the youth who participate in Ag Day activities everywhere. This year's theme, Agriculture, Growing a Climate for Tomorrow, is especially significant considering all that's happening in 2022. Our farmers and ranchers are the backbone of a secure, safe, and sustainable supply of food and fiber for this country and for the world at large. And at no time is the need for those supplies and the stability that U.S. agriculture offers any greater than at present. So from all of us at DTN, our sincere thank you to everyone who is part of the U.S. ag industry that makes that sustainability possible. Please have a safe, productive, and fun National Ag Day.
Inspiring young people to carry the torch forward is at the heart of National Agriculture Day. That's why every year 100 students representing FFA, AFA, 4-H, and Manners participated in virtual Hill visits delivering the message of Ag Day. Additionally, nearly 20 student leaders came to D.C. to participate in leadership training and Ag Day events.
Historically, 100 students representing AFA, 4-H, FFA, and Manners would meet in Washington, D.C. to bring Ag Day to the Hill. Participants would gather for advocacy training and for the opportunity to meet with elected officials. Typically, students have averaged around 86 visits with members and staffers. However, in 2020, the programming quickly shifted to virtual due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We were unable to do visits, and the trend continued into 2021.
Prior to the pandemic, a very intense one-day training session allowed participants to learn about advocacy and governmental policy. But as with all things during the COVID pandemic, programming shifted, and now participants learn over multiple weeks. The students hear from sponsors, industry experts, and even young alumni from the 4 organizations. Most importantly, Participants continue to learn about the importance of advocating for agriculture in any setting.
The move to virtual programming has allowed more flexibility for members scheduling meetings with their elected officials. And in 2022, we even added the training components of working with not only federally elected officials, but local and state as well. And a little good news this year. We have a select group of members in Washington, D.C. as well. Students are prepared to discuss a variety of trending topics in agriculture.
All the students in attendance would like to thank our sponsors, including CHS, for making this year's event possible. Without these sponsors, we would not be able to gather to talk about the importance of our industry and bring Ag Day to the Hill. Additionally, we would like to thank the Ag Day Board of Directors. Without their direction and leadership, we would not be able to have these unique learning opportunities. We look forward to advocating today and every day.
One of the most important components of National Ag Day are the grassroots activities in communities across America. No group is better at mobilizing grassroots activities than the American Farm Bureau Federation. They play a key role in bringing Ag Day to life.
Hello, I'm Zippy Duval, and I'm president of American Farm Bureau. American Farm Bureau is the largest general farm organization in the country, and we represent the men and women that are at home on their farms working hard to provide your family with the fuel, fiber, and the food that you use each and every day. We're also growing a climate for tomorrow. See, sustainability won't look exactly the same from one farm to the other, but all of the farmers out there, including myself, want to make sure that we work and do the right things so that our farms will be in better shape than what we found it. Then over the next few minutes, you're going to see videos from a few farmers from across the country. They're going to tell you what they do each and every day to make sure that they can sustain their farm for future generations. I hope you enjoy these videos, and thank you, and God bless you.
Hi, I'm Tara Vanderdusen. I work here with all of my husband and my brother-in-laws and my father-in-law on our family dairy farm here in eastern New Mexico. Here in New Mexico, one of our most precious resources is our water. We just are in, varying levels of droughts throughout the last several years, as well as just a declining water table. And so one of the most important things we can do is conserve our water. And one area where we use a lot of water is watering our crops. And so one thing that we have done is we are changing out the variety of crops that we plant. So this behind me is hay grazer, which is a drought-tolerant crop.
One of my favorite parts of our sustainability stories is actually what we feed our cows. If you're wearing cotton right now, when you make cotton, there's a seed that's left over. And so our cattle actually eat that. It's a great source of protein for them. Another piece of our sustainability story is that we use peanut shells for bedding for our calves. As we all know, on dairy farms, there is a lot of cow manure, but we actually use that cow manure, we compost it, all of it, and we use it out on our fields to improve our soil health. One other thing that we recycle and reuse on our farm is actually old tires. I work specifically as an environmental scientist, so I deal with a lot of the water quality, soil health, and any manure management. For us, it's really about conserving our water. We only have so much. It's a precious resource. We want to be able to have enough for the future generations. So that is why we practice water conservation throughout our farm, not just here in the fields, but also in our barns. So sometimes when I tell people that I'm an environmental scientist working on the farm, it kind of surprises people, but it's really a crucial job in being able to make sure that we're properly managing our soil and our water. As an environmental scientist and as a mom, one of the things that's really important to me is making sure the quality of our water is absolutely at standard and above standard, because the water that we're feeding our cows and that we're using on our farms is the same water that ultimately ends up in our house, that we are drinking, that we are using every single day.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the food. Thank you for all the farmers who made the food.
I'm Doug Darling, and I'm an owner partner with Darling Farms LLC. Our farm's been in our family since 1833. The family migrated from Massachusetts here and settled, and we've been farming ever since. Here on our farm, we've been predominantly no-till since the early 80s, when my dad first tried no-till corn back in like 83. Where we're standing right now is the middle of one of our filter strips. We've got over 49 acres of filter strips on our farm. And what this is under the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP. This filter strip then captures any of the nutrients that might migrate off my cornfield and that possibly would get into where we periodically get flooding because of the development upstream. And so what we've done is to help mitigate any of that plant food from leaving our property and getting into the water and upsetting the water quality. We've installed these filter strips on a number of our farms. This is our cover crop, and it's a three-way. And what it is, we have oats, we have soybeans, and then we have radishes. And what this does is it captures any of the nutrients that still might be in the soil that was not utilized by the wheat. You can see the wheat stubble here. That's from this summer's crop when we harvested in July. So we've had multiple decades of trying to do things that are good for the environment, good for the soil, and good for water.
I know that my grandpa, he always was saying that he was doing everything for me, everything he did across his life, he was doing for me. And then, that kind of mindset got set into me. And he's not, all the stuff he's doing isn't for me, it's for my son and the next generation, and that just kind of feels good, because you're taking care of the land. It's a resource that we have to take care of, and we've really been really fortunate.
I'm Kamal Bell. I'm a first-generation farmer. A lot of farms like fourth generation or sixth generation, and they already have an infrastructure in place. So literally, when the older farmer gets ready to transition, it's a much easier transition just to give the whole operation to the kids or to someone in the family. But for us, we've had to start literally with nothing. It was an idea that I had. It was a passion, and I take a lot of pride in that, just knowing that I'll be able to do that for my sons. Farming is definitely not easy. I think, especially people my age, I don't think anyone has a job harder. And I solely say that because you're dealing with so many different parameters. You're dealing with the weather, you have to be a carpenter, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a scientist, you have to be a botanist, you have to be a chemist, you have to be all these different roles as a farmer. And farming is very, very difficult, but the love for it drives me. People always ask me, you can be doing so many different things, why farming? So when I was in college, I learned about something called food deserts. And I started to learn on how food, especially healthy food, wasn't made accessible to certain communities based on their socioeconomic status. So instead of me just being like, man, like that's unfair, I decided I was gonna do something or try to do something about it. So I literally changed my major and I switched from animal science to animal industry, and I just set out on a path to be able to grow food, and our mission here is to get it to people who are affected by food deserts. Sustainability to me means longevity. It's like I value the moment, but I also like to think about things long term, and that's why the youth are so important, because without them being involved and them learning and being exposed to these ideas now, we can't ensure that farming is going to look the way we want it to look if we don't incorporate the youth.
When I first came to the farm, it was like, yeah, come out to the farm and I'll show you how to, we'll learn some farming skills, and I'm thinking it's gonna look how it does now, but instead it looks like a forest. And so I think that actually was a blessing in disguise, because we started to know like this is what it means to work for something.
I definitely want this to be a family, something that stays in the family long term.
This is my sustainability story.
Wade Middlestat, Chief Operating Officer of Growmark, and on behalf of Growmark and its FS and grain member cooperatives, we are proud to sponsor National Agriculture Day. On March 22nd, we want to join others around the United States to recognize the men and women who grow crops and raise livestock that feed, fuel, and clothe the world. Join us in recognizing the hard work of America's farmers and ranchers on National Agriculture Day. We are growing a climate for tomorrow.
NPPC, in collaboration with federal agencies, has worked diligently on African swine fever, resulting in achievements worth celebrating. Securing $500 million for prevention and preparedness, achieving the designation of Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands as a protection zone, securing $635 million in emergency appropriations for the Agricultural Quarantine Inspection Program, and successfully advocating for funding for the National Animal Health Laboratory Network and U.S. Customs and Border Protection agricultural inspectors. NPPC, proud to work in a successful public-private partnership critical to protecting our pork industry.
One of the most important aspects of this week's Ag Day events is having 100 FFA, 4-H, AFA, and Manners students making virtual Hill visits and sharing views about the importance of agriculture. This year, in addition to the virtual visits, 16 student leaders are in D.C. to participate in Ag Day festivities. All of these students are bright and excited to take their place as tomorrow's producers. Today we'll get to hear two of those talented and passionate students. The annual Ag Day Essay Contest encourages students in 9th through 12th grades to submit a video or written essay based on this year's contest theme, Growing a Climate for Tomorrow. Thanks to CHS, the lead essay contest sponsor. CHS has been supporting National Ag Day for 29 years. Over 500 written entries were received this year, and 2 merit winners were named. Rebecca Vague from Ellsworth, Kansas, and McKenna Studebeck from Salisbury, Missouri each received $100. The first place winner of the written contest is Hayden Coleman from Trinity, Texas. He'll be reading his winning essay today. The winner of the video essay contest is Kenna Mullins from Oxford, Pennsylvania, and we'll be watching her winning video. Both these winners received $1,000. Thanks to CHS and its 600,000 farmer owners and the other companies supporting this contest. Congratulations! These students have earned this recognition. Let's take a look at the winning work. Thank you.
American Agriculture, Growing a Climate for Tomorrow. As farmers and ranchers, our job is to work to secure food and resources for the world. It is up to us to help those that are hungry and in need be able to obtain and afford these items. As time ticks on, we are facing different challenges. However, with the advances in technology, production is more efficient, more profitable, and safer than ever before. The future of agriculture is bright. As producers and processors, farmers are some of the most productive people in the world. They work day and night to care for their herd or crops. Today, technology has helped with so many aspects of caring for their produce that it has truly changed the way we work. With these advances, we can now monitor moisture levels, get up-to-date aerial images, and have access to machines that complete the job faster and more efficiently. This allows the producer to work more efficiently, with higher productivity, thus lowering costs. In lowering cost and increasing production, we can provide quality products at a stable price. Today's challenges are bigger now than ever before. We face climate change, legislation changes, and inflation that tries to block what we all strive to do. That is to provide quality products and services at fair prices so that everyone can benefit, especially those that are hungry. So many people each year go hungry or die due to lack of proper nutrition from food. Farmers and ranchers are on the front lines of the food chain to provide for others as well as their families. We strive to be more efficient and environmentally friendly, and I believe the advancements in technology will help us greatly. For example, Monitoring moisture levels, we know when our crops need water. This in turn will decrease water usage and decrease runoff, and in turn decrease the impact on our environment. As we step into the next age of production, the use of technology is causing a chain reaction in the efficiency of farming and ranching. As time goes on, I believe that these impacts will help us with the availability of products as well as the stability of costs. I, as a future producer, know that these advancements and changes will positively impact not only individuals but hopefully the entire world. I am hoping to be one of those individuals who can make a difference in the industry and make a difference in the health and well-being of the people around me. Thank you.
Land of the free. The United States. We are each proud of this land for a variety of reasons. That's why farmers across the USA are proud of their land. They take great responsibility to preserve and care for it. Agricultural professionals look for ways to improve their practices to effectively supply the food in our communities. By educating young Americans about an essential part of sustaining all life, agriculture, and therefore the human race, the entire world will benefit. We must be informed of how farmers are effectively managing water resources. One simple practice is planting trees as buffers around creeks to stabilize the banks and absorb nitrogen runoff before it hits the creek, seeping into the water of the community and eventually a whole region as it flows into larger bodies of water. Another way farmers are protecting their watersheds is by installing wood chip bioreactors. Another natural but more complex option for further protecting water and denitrifying. Bioreactors are an agricultural resource that filter out nitrates that would otherwise pollute water. This is done through a pipe which directs drainage water through control structures and into the bioreactor. The wood chips absorb the nitrates from fertilizers that go unused by crops. With effective water management, food supply flourishes, which brings us all together to the table for now and years to come. American agriculture is growing a climate for tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Adriana Ratterman. I lead Corteva Agrisciences U.S. business for the Eastern Corn Belt. I am honored to join you today on behalf of Corteva to celebrate National Agriculture Day and the essay contest winners. Corteva is a U.S.-based company that is 100% focused on agriculture. We launched in 2019 with the purpose to enrich the lives of those who produce and those who consume for generations to come. We do this by putting farmers and consumers at the heart of everything we do, making sure that farmers have what they need to produce quality agriculture products while protecting our natural resources and preserving the land. Whether that means finding ways to sustainably grow more food, creating smarter farms through innovation, or connecting key people and resources across global food systems, agriculture is at the heart of who we are as a company. We are proud to sponsor National Ag Day again this year to celebrate America's diverse farmers and all they do to produce a safe, nutritious, and abundant food supply in sustainable ways that we can all feel good about and we are proud to share. On behalf of more than 20,000 of us at Corteva, I want to thank you for joining us today to celebrate agriculture. I'd like to close by sharing some messages from my colleagues.
Thank you, farmers.
Thank you, farmers.
Thank you, farmers.
Thanks, farmers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, farmers, for feeding our world.
Thank you, farmers, for everything you're doing.
Thank you, farmers.
Thank a farmer if you've got great food to consume.
Thank you. Thank you to all.
Thank you, farmers.
For putting food on everybody's tables in the world and feeding the world and feeding my family.
Thank you, farmers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, farmers. Thank you, farmers.
Well, this is one of the most important days of the year to me. A salute and a shout out to all the farmers, ranchers, and everybody involved in the ag world.
Well, RFD TV, we're all here as a team, but we want you to know we're on your team. We're here to help you.
On behalf of all of us at RFD TV and Rural Radio 147 Sirius XM, we wish each and every one of you a very happy National Ag Day.
Another powerful component of Ag Day is the Outstanding Young Farmer Program, which was formed nearly 80 years ago. The first Outstanding Young Farmer National Congress was held under the sponsorship of John Deere in 1977 in Bismarck, North Dakota. Since then, the program has grown in size and stature. Each year, the top 10 are chosen for an expense-paid trip to the Outstanding Young Farmer Awards Congress each year. These top 10 automatically become members of the OFA fraternity. From the top 10, 4 are chosen as National Outstanding Young Farmers. There are now 1,500 plus members in the OFA fraternity, and several hundred of them return each year to attend the Congress and renew friendships from years past. Please join me in welcoming Hillary Burrell, representing the Outstanding Young Farmers.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today as part of the National Ag Day program. My name is Hillary Burrell, and I am coming to you from Shiloh, New Jersey, where I own and operate Rabbit Hill Farms with my brother Blair Baker, my father Abe Baker, and my uncle Robert Reed. We operate on 585 acres of family-owned land, and Blair and I are fifth-generation farmers. We currently grow a small amount of sod for the landscape industry, commodity wheat and soy, and then a variety of small grains that we put through our on-farm malt house. So the malt house is something that we started, my brother Blair and I started in 2016 as a way for us to help get more local and specialty grains into a growing craft beer and craft spirits industry, where consumers and brewers and distillers alike were all seeking local ingredients and how they could work with them. So over the course of a few years, coming to fruition in 2016, we built a craft-sized malt house where we process the small grains that we grow on our own farm to prepare them to become beer or spirits, which is almost all consumed in small breweries in New Jersey. So for the malt house, we grow barley, we grow wheat, rye, oats, and spelt, and all of those grains are then taken into the malt house and processed to get ready for these brewers. So the malting process, in short, is a controlled germination process that we put the grains through, and the purpose of that is to build the enzymes and make the starch available inside the grains so that the brewers and distillers are able to use them in their process. So we had to learn how to do this process, and I'm really proud of the transition that we have made over the last 6 years, going from building our own equipment to learning how to start making malt to making really high quality malt from excellent quality grains that we grow here on our own farm. So in addition to that amazing transition from a small scale vegetable farm to the grain, high quality grain and malt house farm that we are today, the other thing that I am most proud of in my agricultural career so far is the commitment that my brother and I have made to environmental sustainability on our farm. So each year since we partnered in, we have taken on some level of a conservation project to really ensure the environmental sustainability of our property for years to come. We preserved the whole farm in 2010 to 2012, which means that this land will only ever be able to be used for an agricultural purpose. And along with that, we very acutely recognized that since we were making the commitment to this farm being in agriculture in perpetuity, that we needed to ensure that the land would be as productive as possible in perpetuity as well. So over the last few years, we've installed approximately 8 acres of permanent grass waterway. We've upgraded our irrigation systems to reduce our water usage, so increase our efficiency on each of those irrigation systems. We've installed about 3 acres of pollinator habitat. We have also changed to use more cover cropping in our rotation, switched over to no-till small grains, and making the equipment investment needed to do that. And upcoming for this year, we are planning to undertake an energy audit for the malt house portion of our farm so that we can really have a clear understanding of being as efficient as possible, both in the field and in our processing. We have been incredibly fortunate to work with great conservation planners with the USDA, NRCS, and get some funding for the implementation of these practices over the years from NRCS and FSA. And I recognize that the availability of that funding and that planning resource has been really key to us being able to accomplish our sustainability goals and our improvements on the farm. I read recently that American Farmland Trust had calculated that we've lost 11 million acres in the U.S. over the last 20 years. Those acres of farmland have been lost to development. And I recognize that that's going to keep happening and hope that we can all commit to making sure that the acres that we have left get preserved and are operated in a way that maintains them for future generations as well. So thank you so much again for your time today, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the program.
Hey everyone, this is Troy Hadrick here, 5th generation rancher from South Dakota, and I'm also part of the Certified Ag Dealer Program. We understand that there's this gap that exists between you, the farm and ranch buyer, and the commercial automotive industry because, well, we've experienced it too. That's why we created the Certified Ag Dealer Program and Ag Pack, which is an industry exclusive package of discounts on those products and services that you're already using on your farm and ranch. So when you purchase your next qualified farm truck or SUV from a certified ag dealer, you should have a new level of confidence that you are working with a sales team that understands your needs. So when you're ready to upgrade that farm and ranch truck or SUV, make sure you're doing business with a certified ag dealer. We're not just providing an ROI. From a knowledgeable dealer to ag truck trader, we're providing a whole new truck buying experience for farmers and ranchers. And today, we salute you on this National Ag Day.
Day takes the combined efforts of so many dedicated organizations, businesses, and individuals. A special thanks to the Agricultural Council of America Board for their hard work and commitment. And thank you to everyone who participated in Ag Day 2022. Watch agday.org for details on next year's celebration.